After 4 quite convincing episodes and one that only was tolerable if you are considering it outside of the universe of The Walking Dead, Tales of a Walking Dead was quite convincing so far. So will the season finale, episode 6, titled La Doña, fall in line with the bulk of the episodes? Or will it go down the same path as episode 2? You remember the time loop? Because this episode is promising us a ghost story. And we will find out soon if this is aligning well with the mythology of the Walking Dead universe. If you are interested in hearing my take on that, then follow me for this review video. Eric and Idalia just survived a fight which most of their group did not come out of alive. Some of them are even following them in their new form as a zombie. Fortunately, Idalia remembers that one other woman in her group was telling her about an old woman that lives nearby, La Doña, a healer, or as the locals call her, a bruja, which translates to a witch, but a benevolent one that is helping people and is not doing evil stuff like in the fairy tales. Reaching the house of La Doña, which is quite huge and due to a big fence around it, very well fortified, they enter it without waiting much and without trying to announce themselves properly, even coming in with raised guns, which you might think is normal in their situation, but since they expect someone alive in there, they should have done more of an effort. All of a sudden, La Doña is standing in front of them and everyone gets a big scare, but fortunately they didn't shoot her by mistake. But the woman of the house, of course, is not happy about intruders who are just coming in willy-nilly and is asking them to leave. They talk her into at least letting them stay overnight, but during supper that evening, Eric very loudly and forcefully tries to convince La Doña to let them stay forever, because her house is so big and she has enough food for everyone. Still denying that request, Eric angrily jumps up from his chair, which surprises La Doña so much that she is stumbling over and hitting her head on the table, bleeding out in seconds. Taking over her house then, everything seems to be working fine at first. However, after a while, both of them start to hear voices and start to see things. Are there ghosts at play, or is it just their conscience that is trying to play a trick on them? Well, I can't even spoil you with telling you what the actual outcome is, because they kept it ambivalent. Which is a good thing, because a straight-out ghost story would not have really fitted into the Walking Dead universe. At least that is what I think. Everything that happens to them you could explain either with actual ghost activity, or you could think that maybe they were on drugs, because maybe La Doña were poisoning them before they could hurt her. Maybe something in the house was poisoning them over time, or maybe it was just their bad conscience, as I mentioned before. Ultimately, it doesn't matter much, because you don't care much about what happens to them anyway, due to their characterization, because as I mentioned in the beginning, they are coming in quite violently and with drawn weapons, ready to shoot whoever is in their way, which if they expected zombies would be fine, but they obviously were also ready to just shoot her in case they need it. Which might have been Eric's plan when he stood up and was rushing towards La Doña, who just fell and took care of it for him on her own. Some flashbacks also implied that they had something shady going on, especially with that last fight, that maybe they were actually the aggressors killing all their group, or maybe they weren't. It's also never clarified. In any case, there is nothing much going on in regards of sympathy points when it comes to these two characters. So like I said, ultimately you don't care, and when you don't care, there's also no thrill or interest in having an actual conclusion. So when there was no clear conclusion, it didn't even bother me, because by then I already said my mental goodbye to that episode. So to not drag it out any longer, let's get into the rating. But before we do that, let me ask you to like and share this video if you enjoyed it so far. And if you are no subscriber yet, maybe consider to change that. By also hitting the notification bell, you will get a heads up for most of my new videos. Now for the rating. As you likely expect from the review part, I wasn't that happy with the episode, so the scoring will likely be in the lower regions. The show as a whole was quite satisfying most of the time, and to have the last episode be such a downer is quite a pity, because it doesn't help to raise buzz for the next season, which at this point in time, at least to my knowledge, has not been greenlit yet. It would have been a pity if this last episode was the reason for it. but honestly I don't know if switching the order would have helped much, because then along the way they might have lost some viewers, which also would have endangered the overall success. Like I said in the first review of this series, it's always tough when you have an anthology series, because each week we get a complete different kind of animal served, and that makes things really unpredictable and really inconsistent. Something that this show also has proven quite effectively, in a negative way. At least when it comes to the very last episode of it. The only positive thing the whole episode had in store was the fact that Julie Carmen, who was the star in 1988's Fright Night Part 2 as the lead vampire, had a role in this one as La Doña, and it was quite cool to see her again after all those years. Unfortunately her role was quite short, so not even there they could score some points with me. So where does that leave us when it comes to a rating? I don't want to say that this is a complete waste of time, so I don't go as low as 2 points. But I can definitely tell you that you can skip it, so I'm going with 3 out of 10 points. Which is kind of the same score I've given that time loop episode, if I score it in the context of the whole Walking Dead universe. What do you think? Have you seen this episode and do you agree? Or is it still something you plan to see in the future? Are you in general a fan of the Walking Dead universe, and are you psyched about the new shows that are already visible on the horizon? Whatever it is you like to share, just let me know in the comments. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching!